All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, this may surprise some folks, but I want to applaud Elizabeth Warren for holding Joe Biden's feet to the fire. While he claims to be middle-class Joe, his actions say otherwise. While he claims to fight for women, he has consistently undermined them economically. Warren rightly pointed out that Biden made life much more difficult for struggling Americans and especially women, lambasting him for his, quote, vigorous support of legislation that hurts women. According to Warren's spot-on critique of the type of shallow feminism that would take a narrow approach to women's needs and women's issues, quote, women's issues are not just about childbearing or domestic violence. If it were framed properly, middle-class economic reform just might become the issue that could galvanize millions of mainstream women to join the fight for women's issues. The numbers are certainly there, she said. This year, more women will file bankruptcy papers than will receive college diplomas. More women with children will search for a bankruptcy lawyer than will seek subsidized daycare. And in a statistic with special significance for Senator Biden, more women will be victimized by predatory lenders than will seek protection from an abusive husband or boyfriend. Hear, hear. No word on how highly we should rank the words of a friend in a private conversation in terms of their significance to women. Now, Warren has also been outspoken about Biden's corruption, bashing him for being a zealous advocate on behalf of one of his biggest contributors. Thanks to his coziness with the credit card issuers headquartered in Delaware, Biden was so close with credit card issuer MBNA that he was sometimes referred to as the senator from MBNA. Worth mentioning, Hunter Biden also got in on the action there, of course. He worked as a lobbyist for that credit card issuer for years, even as his dad took votes on legislation of direct financial interest to the industry. Warren, of course, memorably fought with Biden over that bankruptcy bill, tangling with him in memorable clashes. But that was then. And this is now. Now, in a remarkable turnabout, rather than striking righteous blows on behalf of women and the way that corporatist politics, corruption, and disastrous trade deals devastate their lives and their families, rather than using her time on that biggest stage, a presidential campaign, to finally hold Biden to account for his phony middle-class pandering in service of a devastating status quo, she's instead decided that it would serve her short-term political interest to smear her friend, Bernie Sanders, as sexist because she alleges he was insufficiently woke in a private conversation over a year ago. Please explain to me how it serves the cause of women to kneecap a senator who has consistently stood up for the economic and human rights of women since the time that Elizabeth Warren was a Republican. Please explain how it matches Warren's blistering critique of those who would push token woman-specific legislation while undermining them in every other aspect of their lives. Help me understand, white feminists, why whether or not Bernie Sanders was sufficiently PC in that conversation should matter more to women than whether they have health care, are bankrupt from student debt, have access to free childcare, etc., etc. Explain it slow so I really get it, because this makes no sense. It only makes sense as the completion of an evolution that started back in 2016, back when Warren had a choice to do the bold thing and back her ally Bernie, or to sit it out and ultimately do the calculated thing, handing her endorsement to the anointed one, Hillary Clinton. It only makes sense if those principles you claim got you into politics to fight for, wielding a righteous sword on behalf of working-class women and families, turned out in the end to be less important than the siren song of ambition and power. When she chose Hillary, she bought into the establishment game, and one thing we know is that establishment will always back establishment. It's easy to justify, right? If I just do this one thing, then I'll gain power. And if I gain power, that will give me the ability to help those women and families that I still tell myself come first. But this game doesn't work that way. Because if you'll bend now, if you will abandon your foundational principles when no one is even pressuring you to, you will never stand for them when it counts. If you do not welcome the hatred of Wall Street and Silicon Valley and your own colleagues who are funded by those interests, you will never be a true friend to the disproportionately female working class. Instead, you'll be reduced to simply signaling your girl power slay queen wokeness by shameful displays like what we saw at the debate this week. Warren once said rightly that Biden should not be allowed to sell out women in the morning and be heralded as their friend in the evening. Remember, politics are zero-sum. The oxygen that Warren has taken up by launching this scurrilous attack on Bernie has meant that Biden gets off scot-free just when a reckoning was ready to be delivered. By sliming the most consistently pro-woman candidate in the race, she has made clear that her own gender aside, she is no real friend to women. The only good news is the American people have a chance now to soundly reject this cynical ploy and the hollow white feminist politics that come with it. Sagar, I really just wanted to point out how outrageous it is that when you finally have the chance to call Joe Biden out for all the things that you came into politics to fight for, when you have that chance, rather than discussing the actual economic conditions, going after the things that actually affect women's lives, you instead decide to slime your friend, the most consistently pro-woman senator that there is, as sexist.
But Krystal, she's going to wear a pink Planned Parenthood scarf on Inauguration Day.
I forgot about that.
You forgot.
You go,
she's
girl.
The greatest friend to Look, Elizabeth Warren, again, what do we talk about here all the time? Zero sum. When you're attacking Bernie and you're not attacking Biden, Biden wins. She knows this. This is a desperate ploy in order to get the media to try. I think she really misunderstands actually the left and the voters who back Bernie Sanders over her, and their understanding about the economic conditions that contribute to racial and gender and all these other inequalities that we have in our system, rather than just like wokely calling out the inequality itself, not wanting to do anything that affects their day-to-day lives.
Well, it's a perfect example of the type of politics that are celebrated on TV every day and are being celebrated right now. Way to go, Elizabeth Warren. I mean, it's because what matters, what do you think really matters to a voter in Iowa or in New Hampshire or anywhere in the country, to a woman in Iowa or New Hampshire or anywhere in the country? Is it what Bernie Sanders may or may not have said in a private conversation, or what's actually going to help them put food on the table, make their lives easier, allow them to provide health care, have health care, child care, etc.? Of course, obviously that is more important. And that's why I think fundamentally, the media and Elizabeth Warren and her Hillary Clinton holdover apparatchiks on her team completely misunderstand what the ultimate outcome of this is going to be. We've seen this kind of shallow identity politics thrown out there into the ether and completely come crashing back down.
That's the crazy part, is it doesn't work electorally. Donald Trump sensed that, let's just say, uncouth things in the presidential election.
Told it was locker room talk.
54% of white women voted for Trump. There you go. Okay.
Right.
So you want to throw this whole female sexist part? Go ahead, right? Because it ain't going to work out so well electorally, and a lot of people know that this is just a cynical ploy. Probably women more than anybody.
Yeah, and we should be clear, there's zero equivalence. And as we discussed before, she's lying. I mean, just based on the record, based on her record versus Bernie's record, it is much more likely that she's being dishonest here. But let's say she's right. Let's say he said that to her in a private conversation a year ago. Does that really outrank his record, what it means for women, what it means for their daily lives? It's preposterous on its face.
There you go. That's how people actually think.
Next up on Rising, former healthcare executive turned Medicare for All advocate Wendell Potter is here. Our conversation with him, that's next.